Imagine being so focused that the world could collapse around you and you wouldn't even notice. Hours would pass like minutes, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would be able to pull your attention away. This level of presence seems almost impossible in our current reality, where notifications, worries, and constant stimuli fight for every second of our day. But what if I told you that Eastern masters and samurai had already discovered this secret centuries ago? They practiced 3 techniques that were passed down through generations under different names, but always pointed to the same path. After studying more than 200 sources, I gathered everything into a single system I call Sen Shino. In this method, you'll understand exactly how it works. By the end, you'll have clarity on how to eliminate distractions and dive into a state of focus so deep you never believed it was possible. Most people believe that to truly focus, you need to force the mind, grit your teeth, and fight against every distraction as if it were an enemy. But that is exactly the mistake that keeps us away from real concentration. The ancient masters called this chuchuk, destructive attachment. There's a Buddhist teaching that says, what you try to grasp tightly escapes. It's like holding water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Focus works the same way. When you try to concentrate through force, your brain revs like an engine at high speed, burning energy in minutes until it collapses. The result isn't prolonged focus, but sudden exhaustion. A Zen master once compared the mind to muddy water. If you let it rest, it calms down and becomes clear. If you insist on stirring it, the mud never settles. That is the great modern mistake, believing that distraction can be defeated with more force. The East discovered over 2,000 years ago that forcing concentration is the perfect way to destroy it. The first practice is the fixed point. Ancient masters discovered that the mind naturally behaves like a monkey jumping from branch to branch. It's impossible to force it to stop, but you can offer it a main branch to which it always returns. This is the secret of the fixed point, which they called dana. The discipline of keeping your attention on a single object can be your breath, a flame, a word repeated silently, or even the tip of a sword. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary samurai who never lost a duel, would spend hours looking only at the edge of his blade. He said his mind became like the blade itself, sharp, able to cut through anything. The logic is simple. When you concentrate everything on one point, dispersion loses power. It's like channeling the energy of a river into a single stream. What was gentle becomes powerful. Modern science confirms this. By sustaining a single point of attention, regions responsible for mental noise, such as the default mode network, quiet down, and brain activity concentrates in specific areas, creating clarity. The secret isn't to never get distracted. It's to always return to the fixed point. Every time your mind drifts and you bring it back to the fixed point, you're training like a warrior, repeating the same strike thousands of times until it becomes natural. The point may vary depending on your life. A movement if you work with your hands, a word if you write, or a short gesture or phrase if you need to prepare for a meeting. It doesn't matter what it is, the principle is the same. One point, one target, like a mountain that remains unmoved even under the fury of the wind. This is how focus stops being an effort and becomes a weapon. The second practice is deep flow. The fixed point teaches the mind to concentrate on a single target, but if that target becomes too rigid, focus breaks in the face of the unexpected. That's where deep flow comes in. The masters described it with a simple phrase, be like water, present everywhere, but attached to nothing. This is the difference between the beginner and the master. The beginner forces attention like someone squeezing a sword until their hands tremble. The master holds it like someone holding a live bird, firm enough to not let it escape, gentle enough not to suffocate it. You've probably already experienced flow without realizing it. That moment when you were so absorbed in an activity that time disappeared. Maybe playing sports, writing, painting, or playing an instrument. Hours felt like minutes, and the feeling wasn't effort, but lightness. That's deep flow. Concentration without weight, presence without tension. Athletes call it the zone. Musicians call it the pocket. Samurai called it mushin, the mind without mind. This doesn't mean the absence of thought, but the absence of struggle with thoughts. The difference from forced focus is that instead of burning energy trying to hold your mind, you surrender to the moment and let your mind find balance by itself. Think about learning to drive. At first, every detail required effort. Looking at the pedals, checking mirrors, gripping the wheel tightly. You'd be exhausted after 20 minutes. Today, you drive for hours without even thinking about it. What once was effort became flow. That's the power of practice. Repeating the return to the fixed point so many times that eventually the mind stops struggling and slips into absorption. The rigid boxer is easily defeated, but the one who flows like water is untouchable. Bruce Lee said, "Be water." That wasn't just a poetic metaphor, it was a strategic principle. Rigidity is fragility, fluidity is power. In life, this means releasing pressure in situations that require focus. Instead of memorizing every word of a presentation, let the ideas flow. Instead of freezing in a difficult conversation, be present and respond naturally. The more you try to control every detail, the weaker you become. The more you surrender to the moment, the stronger you become. Deep flow is the bridge between focus and freedom. It's when you stop holding concentration and it starts holding you. The third practice is the guardian. Even when we achieve the fixed point and learn to flow, there is still an inevitable enemy: interruptions. In the world, there are no silent temples or perfect battlefields. There's noise, messages, people calling your name at every moment. That's why the masters created the third practice, the guardian, known in Japan as zanshin, the mind that remains. While focus and flow pull you into the task, the guardian keeps your attention alert, ready to bring you back in seconds. The process is simple but powerful. Notice, release, and return. First, you notice the instant your mind has drifted. Most people take minutes or even hours to realize that they've gotten lost in distraction. The master notices in seconds. That moment of awareness isn't failure, it's the training working. The second step is to release, without drama, judgment, or guilt. Like dropping a hot coal from your hand, you just let go. The third step is to return, back to the fixed point or to the flow, like a compass needle always finding north. No effort, no emotion, just return. This training turns distractions into allies. Josh Whiteskin learned this the hard way. He tried to study while his sister blasted music in the next room. At first he got frustrated, begged for silence, but his coach revealed the truth. If you can only focus in silence, you'll never win a tournament. Chaos is inevitable. From then on, Whiteskin used the music as part of his training. Every time it distracted him, he practiced the cycle: notice, release, return. Thousands of repetitions later, the music was still there, but it no longer had power over his mind. The samurai understood this better than anyone. A warrior who trained only in silence would die on a noisy battlefield, but one who trained in chaos became unshakable. The guardian turns every interruption into strength, every fall into practice, every noise into opportunity. At first, you need to consciously apply it. With time, it awakens on its own, like blinking or breathing. What once knocked you off track for 5 minutes now becomes just a second of distraction. With enough practice, you don't even fall. The guardian catches you before you hit the ground. That's what makes focus unbreakable. Not because the world goes silent, but because within you, eternal vigilance is born. Now that you know each practice, it's time to understand how they unite. Separately, they are powerful, but incomplete. The fixed point gives you a target, but alone it can become rigid and shatter at the smallest impact. Deep flow brings lightness and flexibility, but without an anchor, it drifts. The guardian keeps the mind alert, but it needs focus and fluidity to truly work. Together, these three forces form a closed system, a perfect circle called Senin-do, the path of the clear mind. Think of a warrior on the battlefield. The fixed point is the sword in his hands, precise and sharp. Flow is the movement of his body, adaptable, impossible to predict. The guardian is his peripheral awareness, the never-sleeping perception of everything around him. A samurai with only the sword wouldn't survive. One who moved well but lacked awareness would be taken by surprise. One who was alert but unskilled would fall quickly.
But when the three forces came together, he became invincible. The same happens with your mind. The fixed point anchors, flow sustains, the guardian protects. It's a system that doesn't depend on force, but on balance. And when that balance is achieved, you discover a focus so stable that nothing external can break it. This is the true power of Senhindo, transforming chaos into background, distraction into training, and concentration into a natural state. Reaching this level of focus changes everything in your life. When you practice Senindo, each action becomes clearer, each decision more precise, and each moment deeper. The daily noise stops ruling your mind, and the chaos of the external world loses its grip on you. But beware, once you taste this clarity, returning to ordinary distraction becomes almost unbearable, like a samurai returning to the life of a farmer. Start today. Choose your fixed point. Dive into deep flow. Train the guardian. Turn every interruption into an opportunity, every challenge into practice. The world doesn't need more distractions. It needs minds capable of effortless focus, unshakable in the face of anything. Be that warrior. Be the master of your focus.